Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Friday live stream. We still are switching up the name, so leave a comment if you have any suggestions. So, just want to do a quick wrap up of the week. It's been very much dominated by our crowdfunding campaign, which is a good segue to this conversation with our guest. But we've hit about 15%. We're on day 5, which is fantastic. And we're just getting so many amazing supporters coming in, sharing their praise, shouting out about us. And it's really touching. And we just, you know, continuously are thinking about all of the people who've done so much to help us. So thank you, everyone. If you haven't made a pledge, then definitely visit our website or our crowdfunding page, social. You will see it wherever you find us. So make sure to check out our video and campaign. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce Emily, who is the founder of Citizen, which is a creative agency that works with people and is not only purely about profit. But over the last decade, she has worked for some really big name brands. So from IKEA to Fairtrade to Recycle Now. They're really excited to share a little bit more about this Most Dangerous Word is Just campaign. And I really thought it was important to, one, not only give a wonderful female founder a platform, but also to really unpick the depth and really richness of this campaign. So welcome, Emily.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And we put out a message and there was with you and a Cocker Spaniel, so I was a little disappointed you wouldn't be able to bring your dog.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. The Cocker Spaniel is currently like living the high life, I think in Windsor or in Wales
Oh
this weekend.
wow,
So,
very nice. That's all right.
yeah.
We'll deal with a picture for now. Very cute. So
Sorry
that
to
was just a
disappoint
short,
already.
I know, that was a really short and sweet introduction. So tell us a little bit more about yourself and what led you to making the plunge and starting your own agency.
Yeah, sure. Well, I grew up in Leeds, and about 10 years ago moved to London. I kind of always wanted to, I've always known that I wanted to work in like branding and advertising. I was really lucky. I had family who worked in the industry. So I used to like, go there when I was like 14, 15, 16, go to their agencies and do work experience. It's like these people just seem to have an amazing time. Like, it doesn't seem like work as I kind of understood it at the time. So when I finished university, moved to London and did loads of internships with different agencies, landed a job at a place that I was at for like 7 years, 8 years, maybe quite a long time, where I worked in pretty much every different department you could do. I worked across loads of different industries. I did like so many different kinds of projects, loads of different brands, loads of different campaigns. Went to another agency kind of 2 years ago, which was a much smaller agency, like really different culturally, but really great team. Worked with a lot of tech startups, so
Mm.
it's a kind of very, very different experience. And then this summer, like during lockdown, made the somewhat mad decision to quit my stable job in the middle of a pandemic and start my own agency. So I
Oh,
think in some
amazing.
ways it was a long time coming. Like, I always knew that I wanted to have my own business, but in other ways, I think, and this is probably something that everyone can kind of appreciate and has experienced, lockdown and everything that's happened this year just really made me reevaluate like what I was doing with my time and
Mm.
where I wanted to kind of put my time and energy going forward. And that's when Citizen was born.
Oh, that's
So yeah.
so fantastic. I don't even think I knew. Well, I certainly didn't know the depths and that this was a COVID brainchild of yours, or at least enough of a kind of push into it, which is
Yeah.
great. And Emily was fantastic. She reached out multiple times to to do something
It's
with Save It
super
This City.
annoying.
I didn't report it as stalking, but
But yeah.
no, it was not. But yeah, just the determination and the perseverance. I was like, okay, I definitely need to sit down and speak to this woman. So thank you for doing that because I
No
think this is
worries.
really exciting that you've started this. So I guess we know why you started Citizen and how recently. Um, so tell us a little bit more around, well, it'd be interesting to know like where did you resonate if you did so many different sections of advertising and design, like what kind of help made you settle into kind of like comms and strategy and managing a team even.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, I've always enjoyed like managing people, having a lot of people around me, but I studied English at university, and so I kind of naturally fell into the strategy and the copywriting side of work. So I work really closely with designers, but the kind of writing and the thinking part has always really been where I've enjoyed working, and I think probably what I'm best at. I'm sure like if anybody who knows me is watching, they can comment and be like, no, you're terrible. But,
No
um,
way. Not at all.
I hope not. I hope I haven't invited that now. Please don't do that. So yeah, I've always wanted to do work that puts a lot of emphasis on words and on kind of thinking versus just design. But I also found like more and more, maybe it's as you get older and you get a bit more aware of what's happening in the world, that the projects I really loved and found really rewarding were the ones that weren't just helping a company to make money. Like, yes, there
Mm,
is a commercial angle to a lot of the work that we do at Citizen. It's not that we exist only for NGOs or um, anything like that, but it is really important to me that every project we do makes a positive impact in some way. I don't want to
mm.
spend my life, my time, and my energy just like churning work out to put money in somebody else's pocket or even my own, frankly.
Yeah.
So that was kind of where the thinking behind Citizen came from initially. And I guess out of the fact that I've actually got a lot of experience now working in sustainability, working in behavior change campaigns, working with NGOs, doing a lot of good work, I guess you kind of, the more you do of something, the better you get it, and therefore the more you kind of enjoy it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's probably, yeah, as you said, like with COVID and looking at the perspectives of things and how much work we really need to do in society, it's really not even, I mean, in my eyes and perspective, like it's not becoming a question of, that's just an old model of business that just is
Yeah.
slowly getting phased out, which is exciting in a lot of ways. But yeah, like, so I think the way that you describe kind of, the power of words and even like reevaluating the words that we use. So how did the concept of kind of the most dangerous word and looking at the word, especially just, come into your mind or your team's mind?
Uh, it's a really good question. I mean, I remember like right back, probably actually when I first came across you, and definitely in our first conversation, being quite alarmed by the extent to which sexual harassment is not reported.
Mm,
And I was kind of really like shocked and surprised by it. And then actually when I looked back on my own experiences and the experiences of friends, things have happened to me that I haven't reported, because you just kind of think, oh well, it's just something that happens, right? It's just an unfortunate circumstance. It's not nice, but like it's not worth calling the police over. I don't want to waste the police's time. It's actually just a really small thing. And the more we looked into the shocking figures around sexual harassment, but the equally shocking figures around how little of it were reported, the more we started to feel like actually there's got to be something in here. There's got to be a reason why people aren't reporting. And
mm,
that's when we landed on this kind of insight around minimization. So the fact that when something really bad happens, however kind of big or small it might seem, we minimize it to ourselves, we minimize it to our friends, to our families, because we want to make ourselves feel better. We want to forget it. But
mhm,
we also, I think, want to make the people around us feel reassured too. We don't want to think that our friends and family are going to have to be worried about us kind of out on the street, out living our lives. So I think we tell ourselves and everybody else that it was a small thing. And the more we looked into the way people talked about harassment when they were trying to minimize it, the more words like just and only started to come out.
mm,
And yes, it's things like it was just one guy or he was just joking, but it's also things like it doesn't matter, I'll just like not get the bus to work for a while, or I'll just walk a
mm,
different way home. Like there are real profound implications
mhm,
to harassment, even when it seems like maybe it's a small thing. Maybe somebody like gives you like horrible look for a while on the tube, or maybe it feels like maybe somebody's like following you home a little bit. Are all things that you can't maybe put your finger on. You can't say like somebody has committed a violent act against me.
Mm,
The things that make you feel uncomfortable, and our kind of feeling is, if something is making you feel uncomfortable to the extent that it's changing your behavior, it's not just a small thing, it's a big one.
mm,
And actually, the fact that people like Safe in the City exists, and you are giving people this great kind of channel and a great solution to reporting that feels, I guess, proportionate to some of the things that happen. You're not calling 999 and being like, some guy made a really horrible joke at me on the tube, but you are helping people have a voice, and you're helping people speak up and share their stories so that other people can stop it, right? So I just felt like that was a really powerful story there for us to tell, and it's never just a small thing. Speak up, share it to stop it, and then you guys obviously the perfect solution to that problem.
oh, well, thank you. I mean, it was fantastic when you presented, an array of ideas. That one definitely stood out, that we were like, whoa, because as you said, it's also taking a shift of perspective on kind of some of these words that we kind of flow through, and we don't even realize the habits and the consequences that come along with it. And certainly from kind of the research and the kind of data side, it definitely becomes apparent that this isn't a small thing, because when you amount the volume of these micro to macro issues, it's really overwhelming, of like, how has this existed for so long, and why are there so few solutions out there really tackling it in a way that can start flipping things on its head. And I think especially with technology, that becomes you know a way to express ourselves, a way to be able to share what's going on, how it and what does that look like, and how it's impacted. And I guess that was ultimately what Safe in the City's kind of ambition was, to at first kind of look at, well, people might be moving out of these areas because of these incidents, to now what we're doing today, which is a lot larger, of working with different charitable bodies and organizations at city level, at national level, to look at kind of how can this add value into all types of spaces, so that it's not just one uh, one incident, it becomes
Yeah,
part of that bigger picture.
yeah.
um, but yeah, I feel like we could probably go on about this all day.
That's
But
good. Great conversation to have.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, what does it mean to you personally? I mean, I know that you said it started to kind of help you reflect on different experiences that you have. Have you had any moments where you've caught yourself saying, oh, well, that was just, you know, this one time, or any of those things that you reflect on?
Yeah, I mean, multiple. When I think about things that have happened to me personally, there are a couple of incidents that are like actually quite big, and probably I should have reported to the police, and at the time I didn't, because I guess I didn't think that they were sort of worthy of their time, and I didn't want to like waste police time because they've got bigger things to do. But there are also just small, like you say, kind of micro incidents that happen all the time, that are things that make you feel a bit like gross or a bit uncomfortable, or like, oh, why am I looking at that person, or like, oh, am I wearing something inappropriate? You like question what you're doing because you
Mm,
think you must be doing something, and then you just sort of want to forget about it as quickly as possible and
mm,
get away from the situation, just like get out of it. um yeah, I mean, there have been so many of those experiences, and I think I've every single woman that I know, definitely living in London, has had exactly the same thing. Like when I've talked to friends about working with you guys and working on this campaign, they're all like, oh yeah, like here's a list of things that happened, and some of them are like what would be deemed probably shocking. Others are just things that we learn to live with, and we kind of stop noticing to a point because it just becomes normal. And I
mhm,
think that's where this idea of like minimization really hits. It does feel like just it's really simple, but it is a human truth that
mm.
resonates with anybody who's ever experienced harassment, of any gender in any city, kind of everywhere. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely something that resonates with me.
No, and I think that's a really important thing in that it takes a shift when you do kind of recognize actually this does still affect me, like, that you said that you had a laundry list from other friends of their incidents, like they
Yeah,
still, it's still in their memories. It's still, compounding on one after the other and also circulating that kind of what's the point of reporting. And I think that's also the important kind of bridge in using language to share it, to stop it, in a sense that you can write it down or you can speak to somebody about it or you can, make a mark that changes a bit of the narrative. And at least with some of the people we've talked to, certainly in my experience, even reporting on my on Save for the City, it's very much like a catalyst to just be like, okay, at least I know that there's now something else working behind the scenes, that I don't necessarily
yeah,
have to stop what I'm doing and, go spend 2 hours on the phone and just like, go through all these systems that really aren't designed to
yeah.
address the spectrum of these safety issues.
I think the other thing as well that I've really has kind of changed my opinion actually while I was working on this campaign is looking through some of the things that do get reported to Safe in the City. I guess there's a really interesting piece around language where a lot of the language that's being used, particularly kind of at women, are things that feel kind of quite childish and a bit babyish, like being called baby or being called princess. There's a lot in there that kind of feels quite creepy and quite weird, and actually
Mm,
sort of thing that like I don't think you'd ever normally think to report that because you're like, oh, that's just like some creepy guy. I'll just forget about that. But actually, the fact that people have reported it, as soon as one person reports that, you then think, oh, hang on a minute, this is a valid thing for me to feel uncomfortable
mm,
about. I'm going to report it as well. And so it's such a positive, like such an incredibly positive
exactly.
platform, this amazing snowball effect, and this like compound, like positive benefit that comes when one person speaks up. It just creates this kind of comfort zone, I guess, for other people to share their stories as well. And I think that's definitely something that I've been trying to do more in my
Mm.
own social circles and will continue doing as a consequence of working with you guys. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's
really
amazing.
powerful.
Oh, that's amazing. And that's exactly what you aim to start. So I'm so glad that we were one of your first projects to kind of
Yeah,
spark that. I think that's really powerful. And if you haven't seen kind of the 9 grid that introduced the campaign, that says it's not just a comment, we can tag it in on Instagram. But if you zoom into those words, actually what they've done was actually design in actual reports from the website that you can see of the text. So if you zoom in, you can see all of these reports that Emily was referring to,
yeah,
which, and I think even leading into it, we did the top 5 most dangerous words leading into kind of just, which is probably a shocker for some people. But also just seeing that context, you might be like, well, it's just the B word, it's just bitch, like, but then you read on and go, bitch, I'll kill you with a stone, and you're like,
yeah,
that's not okay in
yeah,
any sense of things, which is also really important because, again, we're really excited that we're, getting behind campaigns like the misogyny as a hate crime, because these are symptoms of this larger problem. If someone's going to threaten to kill you purely because you're a female, like, there's something very wrong there.
yeah, yeah. Could not agree more.
Just full stop. There's just um so yeah, I think even, we just launched not even a week yet, and it sparked so many conversations,
Yeah.
at least in my circle. But I would love to like see what your kind of network and some of the feedback, and things, maybe new perspectives on the word just or other dangerous words of minimization that you've heard.
Yeah, I mean, it's been really interesting. We've had super positive reactions from pretty much everyone we've spoken to about it. I think the biggest thing for me has just been you see this kind of penny drop moment with people where they're like, oh, that's like I've been doing that, and I think they think that as I did, by saying it's just a small thing, actually you're not making a fuss, right? As women, we're just taught not to make a fuss. We're taught to just get on with it and like be brave and be strong and don't be too loud and don't be too bossy and, just kind of be good. Right. And I
Mhm.
think that's kind of what people think they've been doing. It's like, oh, well, I've been being good and I haven't been causing any unnecessary trouble.
Mm.
And now people are like, actually, no, I should be doing that. I should be I should be speaking up because it's not me that's making trouble. It's the people that are yelling at me on the street or kind of coming up and doing inappropriate things on the tube. They're the ones with the problem. So it's definitely been a big penny drop moment that I've seen. But I think also the big comments I've had from people are around some of the language. So you mentioned that 9 grid. Some of the things that have been said to people just on the street as part of everyday life. I've had people messaging me being like, this is absolutely shocking. And it's not just the big ones like the one that you cited, bitch, I'll kill you with a stone. Like, yes, that's horrendous. But just the prevalence of, people being persistent. And
Mm.
when they don't get a reaction from women, turning on them super quickly in a really violent way as if they think it's their right to have access to these women.
Mm.
I've had quite a few kind of irate comments from people saying like, how is this allowed to happen? And I think it's not until you really look at the scale and the qualities in some of the things that have been reported that you actually start to appreciate the scale of the problem, because we all kind of know that it's there and you expect a bit of it to some extent. You're like, I'll just try and like keep out of the way, or that street's a bit dark, I just won't go down there, or I'll just get a cab instead of getting the tube. But I don't think you kind of take into account how big the issue is and
Mm.
how important it is actually that we all speak up and talk about it, and like, let's talk about the fact that this is a big, like, terrible issue, guys, and let's make it normal
Absolutely.
to speak about it and remove the stigma and say like, this isn't okay and we need to stop it.
Well, this is a really, like, as you said, this is an enormous issue, which I think, you know, on our last episode with Emily May, we talked about some research from Stop Street Harassment, which was, I think, in partnership with UN Women, and they covered 10 different countries. They surveyed thousands of women. And actually, what they found was the number one thing was actually street harassment, which was one of the biggest problems for most women in these different countries, and above actual gender pay gap, actually. So
Yeah.
it's like, hey, look, we'll tackle this problem first, and then we'll get to kind of getting paid fairly. But that, I think, just really speaks to the magnitude of, as you said, like, a lack of recognition of how big this issue is, and the power of language, of seeing it out there, and also revising or understanding how your narrative is potentially playing into that kind of
Mm.
longevity of this problem.
And I think it's a really fine line, because at no point are we saying, and should we and do we want to say, you who has been harassed on the street are part of the problem.
No,
And
no,
it's
100%.
like a really fine, it's a fine balance to strike here, because actually it's saying like, you're not part of the problem, but by speaking up you can be part of the solution.
Yeah,
That is, I
yeah,
think, a really important point to make there. Like, to your point, all of this is part of a huge systemic issue. So
yeah,
the gender pay gap, they're all coming from the same place, and we need to address that. But I think, this is a simple, easy, but really meaningful, impactful way that you can kind of speak up and have a voice on
yes.
this issue.
Yeah, no, 100%. No victim blaming, and that hold of responsibility is a lot to expect of anyone. And I guess the importance of sharing is taking that step of trying to heal, and making sure that you have that time and space to process what's happened,
Yeah,
but then being able to seek help, and, as you said, kind of be part of the solution to yourself and to others. But ultimately, I think there's a whole other campaign of looking at kind of bystander and a lot of other people who are in a more maybe neutral position of power and responsibility to step in and to or peer to peer kind of combating these types of things. So,
yeah.
yeah, that's fantastic to hear. So, Emily, like, we're at time already. Oh my goodness,
Oh,
that's
that went so
half an hour
quickly.
flew by. Is there any way, like, we'll obviously link to Citizen and your website, but is there yeah, anything you'd like to leave with people about what you're working on next or who you're looking to work with, anything like
Yeah,
that.
we've got quite a few kind of exciting things coming up. So we've got something launching in a couple of weeks with a charity that again focuses on kind of girls and empowering and educating girls. So that's like something that we're super passionate about. We've got a new kind of tech brand coming out for a carbon balance scheme. We're working with some bigger businesses as well. Like there's a lot on the horizon. But yeah, our big thing is just that we really want to work with people, with businesses who are excited about making more than just money. So for anybody who's looking to leave a positive mark on the world and is kind of questioning like how they could do that, what kind of campaign they need, whether their brand maybe needs to work a bit harder, like we can definitely kind of help and would love to have chats there. So yeah, I think Instagram and our website probably are the best way to find us. I also love LinkedIn. LinkedIn is like definitely my social media safe space, which is probably on YouTube, but when you're on LinkedIn, give
The
me a little ad.
algorithm, no.
Exactly. Well, yeah,
Yeah, no, and we'll be sharing out this, so we'll make sure to get this on LinkedIn as well.
cool.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Emily, and to your team for all of your hard work to get this campaign. So, do make sure to check out the campaign and all of the hard work that's done behind the scenes to get it out there. And of course, share what you think of it and share your experiences and thoughts and conversations maybe that you've had as this is really starting to, again, gain the momentum and traction that it needs to find better solutions. So, thanks for tuning in and have a great weekend.
Cool. Thank you so much for having